All right, welcome to the season, episode 40. This is NFL Draft first round reactions. This is the Friday morning after what ended up being a pretty eventful first round, Nick. I think going into the draft, there was like, I would say, a lack of hype in this draft mainly because I think the quarterback situation had been solved for the most part. Everyone knew Fernando Mendoza was going to go first. Less intrigue there. And so it just didn't feel like there was as much hype. But yesterday was an eventful night, and Fernando Mendoza goes first overall. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously watching the draft, obviously in tune because of what we do, but it wasn't that interesting. Duke, my son, did not think it was very interesting. Before I knew it, we're on pick like 6 or 7, and all of a sudden the TV switches to Amazing Spidey and Friends. And he's like, I don't want to watch that. And then Tori stood up and was like, hey, well, your dad and Evan, they have the season. Like, he needs to watch it. And I told him, I was like, it's awesome for these guys, but if you want to watch Amazing Spidey and Friends, like, I'll put it on over here. I got to track this a little bit, see what's going on. The thing that amazes me too, and it's always the style every year, now it's the sunglasses, and I laugh because this is such a special day for all these guys. It's amazing. It's really, really special. They're going to, Roger Goodell, giving them a hug. They're on stage, and then we still have all the rounds left. And then I think but then it's time to get to work, right? You're going to be a first-round pick, face of a franchise. What an amazing opportunity. Change your family, generations, so many amazing things you can do with it. But then it's time to get to work. But it was interesting. Fernando Mendoza, first pick. We all knew that. He knew that. They had the Raiders hat. He probably only had the Raiders hats at his house ready to go. He probably already has the playbook. He probably got it from Tom Brady somehow. Sure. He's probably dialed up and ready to go. But I'm really excited for all these guys getting drafted. As we talked about in previous episodes, what a special time for all these young men to enter the NFL and live out their dreams. It's really amazing.
Yeah, I mean, he had basically a dream season last year, right? Undefeated national champions. He had over 3,500 yards passing, 41 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He was an over 72% passer. He's got toughness. He's got character. He can throw it. I mean, he checks every box. And so when guys like this get drafted and it's that obvious, you can't wait to watch them play. And Kirk Cousins is there in Las Vegas, and the assumption is that Kirk will start for part of this. But Fernando Mendoza is a smart kid, and I got to believe he's going to be ready sooner rather than later. Like we said, I think the key point with Fernando and when he's going to play is not so much, mentally, when is he there with picking up the offense? I think he could get there pretty quickly. It's, do the Raiders have the pieces around him to allow him to flourish? Because part of the deal with Kirk Cousins, you're going to pay him $20 million or whatever it is. He understands he's going to have to absorb some of that stuff if the pieces around him aren't ready, right? And I mean it. It's like, hey, Kirk, you go take it. We don't want to ruin Fernando. And so Kirk's going to have to run out there if they're not ready to protect the quarterback and just deal with it. I know you've dealt with that at times in your past. That just comes with the territory. And I don't suggest them putting Fernando on the field unless the pieces around him, not just him, but the pieces around him are ready.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm Fernando Mendoza, I'm just what an amazing young man. Just everything he's saying. My mom was sending me different articles yesterday, just from a mother's perspective of just giving her chills that, talking about his mom and everything that their family's gone through, and just what a great head on his shoulders, how he speaks, just he's a really bright light. He's a guy that can change a locker room with his attitude. It's contagious. You saw what he did at Indiana. Obviously, there's other pieces, but what an amazing player for the Raiders to get. And if I'm him, I'm also excited I got Kirk Cousins there. He reminded me last year, watching him do interviews, watching him play a little bit, he reminded me of Kirk. Just the personality, and I feel like everyone has to feel that way. High energy, high character, man of faith, all those things. And that's going to be important throughout his career. That's how he changes a locker room. But having Kirk there to learn from him, I know Kirk's very regimented. There's been a lot of things, whether it's the Netflix series he did or different sound bites that go out on social media or ESPN of him speaking about football. I mean, what a great guy for Fernando to learn from. And Kirk can go play in that situation. If they don't have the pieces right there to put Fernando in, Kirk knows how to deal with that. He knows how to get the checkdowns. Sometimes he probably gets the checkdowns too much, but he knows how to take what the defense is giving him, stay inside the chains, play smart, not turn over the ball, play a good team game, something that the Raiders can really build on throughout the course of this season. And then, hey, we all believe that at some point Fernando's going to take over this year, right? Yeah. I mean, I feel like we all feel probably that. The NFL wants that. The fans want that. But my hope for him is it's in the right situation where he can get thrown in there and he can really take off.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. Another interesting one was the Cardinals at 3 with Jeremiah Love. Jeremiah Love's a very rare combination of size and speed at the running back position to go that high. Obviously, there needs to be something that jumps off the charts about you. You can't just be, I know Ashton Genty went high last year, but to go this high, he's a 4.35 40 guy. He can run, amazing acceleration. He's great after contact. He's good catching the ball out of the backfield. Like, he pretty much checks every box. And so I think the Cardinals looked at this and thought, we lose Kyler Murray, we get rid of Kyler Murray. This offense doesn't really have an identity. I mean, Michael Wilson popped last year, really good receiver, but doesn't really have an identity and something to rally around. And so I think Jeremiah Love immediately gives them a playmaker at a key position, but also gives these fans something to look at when they go like, why would I go to a Cardinals game next year? Are we going to be any good? Well, it's going to take some time, and Jeremiah Love's not going to turn into 15 wins for him, but it is someone you're going to pay to watch. And so it generates some excitement in a key position for the Cardinals, which I think is a good thing, right? Because there wasn't much there offensively.
Yeah, I mean, they needed some star power, and they got it. Kurt Cignetti said this a few weeks ago when Sonny Dykes was sort of, having some comments about his former quarterback that went to Indiana. And then Kurt Cignetti came out and was like, hey, you know what? He met his best friends at practice, a great defense and a great run game. And I was like, that's really a great foundation for, a team is, hey, obviously you got to have a great defense. Offense and defense has OTAs and training camp to make each other better. Going into the season, it's really hard to win a championship without an amazing defense. I don't even know if it's possible. You got to have a defense that can go out there and be threatening. And then having a great run game. Why do you want a great run game? Well, you're going to stay inside the chains. First, second down, you're going to have some good play calls. Then you get to 2nd and 6, 3rd and short, higher percentage of continuing the drive. And it opens up your play action and your bootleg game. Having the ability to not just have to drop back when the defense can just tee off on you and do like hard play action, 7-man protection, take shots downfield. Hey, it's not there. You're going to check it down to the back. The reason you can do that at a high level is you have a great run game and a threatening running back. So that's what they wanted to get here to really build this Arizona Cardinals team up. So I'm excited for them. They got some star power.
Yeah. They honestly did not have a huge need at running back. I mean, Tyler Algier signed in free agency and James Conner's back for another year. So it's not like there was this huge void. The guy's just a playmaker.
Yeah.
He does everything at the position. He can split out. He can play some receiver. Like, really good player that will be fun to watch in the NFL. Jeremiah Love's a stud. All right, we're going to jump forward to the 13th pick. The Rams trade with Atlanta and jump on Ty Simpson, the quarterback. So I wondered about Ty Simpson coming into this draft because I felt like ultimately as a finished product, which he only has 15 starts, that he maybe is a first-round talent, but he's a project, right? He's not quite there yet. He played well at times last year, and then I thought towards the end of the season tailed off a little bit, didn't look great. But this is where this was no question the surprise of the draft last night is the Rams that for at least what I perceive Sean McVay to be in win now mode because you're year to year with Matt Stafford, and Matt Stafford is still playing at a level where he can win you a Super Bowl, right? Now to be clear, I give the Rams credit because they did make moves on the defensive side of the ball that were necessary. Trent McDuffie, Jalen Watson, they went and grabbed for the secondary that were big moves that signal we're ready to take a move now to chase a Super Bowl, right? So those moves were key. We can't overlook those. But this move for a quarterback is a classic philosophical rub within an organization, the friction that's always there philosophically. We saw it most notably with Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers when he was in Green Bay. It felt like Aaron needed another weapon. Instead of doing that, they drafted Jordan Love, and Aaron wasn't happy about it, and a lot of Green Bay fans weren't happy about it, but now they are happy about it. So the philosophical rub is Les Snead, the GM, and head coach Sean McVay, who, by the way, Sean McVay appeared pissed off last night. Call it what you want, but that's the facts. Like, in their press conference, he did not look pleased. Now, I'm not suggesting, Nick, that Sean McVay didn't know they were taking Ty Simpson. That's absurd to suggest that because Sean McVay, being the offensive guy that he is and your head coach, one of the best head coaches in football, is going to be involved in all these decisions with Les Snead. But I am suggesting that maybe there was a little bit of a headbutting on it, and Sean finally kind of gave in, and Les jumped on Ty Simpson thinking more for the future, and Sean still just doesn't love it and wasn't pleased with it. I think that's very possible, and that's what it looked like watching this. A reminder, Ty Simpson, 15 starts, definitely a project, and if you're Stafford or McVay, like this is the rub and the friction within an organization. It's tough because like 3 years from now, we might be saying, man, that was a genius pick. You didn't need to do it at the time. You did it. Now you have a quarterback in Ty Simpson. Or we might be looking back and saying, not only did Ty not pan out, but man, Matt Stafford back in 2026 could have really used a weapon. So this is just a really interesting thing to look at and discuss with regard to how these organizations make these decisions in moments where it feels like we're in win now mode with a 38-year-old quarterback.
Yeah, let me throw a question back at you, Ev. Like, all right, Matthew Stafford, after this year is gone, who's taking over at quarterback for the Rams? Who's the future
That's why
quarterback?
they did it.
Exactly. So, like, that's
Jimmy G might retire.
Exactly. So it's like
he's considering it.
I just they know that, and this was a pressing matter, and they probably had discussions. Hey, Ty Simpson, we all expect him to be the second quarterback off the board. He's probably not going to be there at our pick, but if he is, that's who we're going with. So Sean McVay's probably like, all right, cool. He's probably going to be gone. Then I can get my guy with Matthew Stafford probably, and who knows how much longer Matthew will play. But, they're going year to year, so they have to approach it as this is his final year. That's just the mindset. Yeah. So Sean McVay probably had a new little tool for him, whether it's, a skill player, offensive, whatever it may be. But then Ty Simpson's there, so then they take him. And the big thing with Ty is only time will tell. I mean, he gets to learn from Matthew Stafford. I doubt Matthew cares. He has that mentality. He's a gunslinger. He's going to go out there, obviously a brilliant quarterback, brilliant mind, how he sees the field, how he, constructs the offense. They must have seen that in interviews with Ty Simpson. It's so hard to tell from college to the NFL how you're going to, react to defenses, how you're going to read defenses, how you're going to conduct the offense, how you're going to step in the huddle, call the play, call the cadence, get up to the line, be able to audible. Sean McVay has this offense that has probably grown in difficulty because of Matthew Stafford being there. So he must have really impressed them in the meetings when they were talking ball, and they felt like, hey, from the mental aspect, this guy can get it, and he can rise above like Matthew Stafford has, and this is a guy that can take over for him. Like they had to. This isn't a second-round pick. This isn't a third-round pick. This is a first-round pick. So you're saying this guy is expected to be the future, and they must have just really liked what they saw in the meetings from I'm saying from a cerebral standpoint. I know we've talked about throwing and moving around and stuff. That's great. But for that offense with Sean McVay, with taking over for Matthew Stafford someday, you better have a high IQ and be able to function at a very high level mentally to be able to run it.
And going back on my comments on Sean McVay not appearing not to be pleased in the press conference with Les Snead, I'm also going to say I strongly believe that Sean McVay likes Ty Simpson as a player. Their evaluation would have included Sean McVay's opinion, and I strongly believe that Sean's opinion was inserted as like, no, this is a guy that we consider to be draftable. I just don't know if we should do that right now. And they ended up doing it. So it's possible. What I'm getting at is it's possible. I would say it's likely that he's irritated about it, but that doesn't necessarily reflect his thoughts on the player. I think he likes Ty Simpson. Otherwise, there's no chance Les Snead pulls the trigger if his coach, who's like kind of a quarterback guru type, is sitting there being like, I've never liked this guy. No way they go for him. I think he likes Ty Simpson. I think it's very possible, though, he looked at it and said, why are we doing this right now? This is not what I had in mind. But to your point, what's the plan? Long run. Here's the interesting thing about the Rams. With Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua in the mix, there were thoughts that, like, man, if you added one more weapon, they'd be incredibly deadly. A lot of people thought they would go for Mai Lemon, right? And at 13, Mai Lemon was there. Two receivers had already gone. The kid from Ohio State, Carnell Tate, and Jordan Tyson from ASU had already gone. And Mai Lemon sitting right there. When they were trading up, you're like, this could be it. And then it's Ty Simpson again, surprise of the draft. And we're going to come back to Mai Lemon in a moment, but surprise of the draft for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, they watched the season, so they know that wasn't where Mekhi was going to go. We said where he was going to go back in November, so they knew we're not going to touch him. It was already predicted. We got a hands off him. Let's go get Ty Simpson, and we'll build up for the quarterback of the future. I mean, getting a quarterback for the future right now, when it's year to year with Matthew Stafford, to me is a brilliant decision. Now,
it's a good discipline move. For sure.
You have to, because like you can't just all of a sudden bet like everything, like especially if Matthew goes down. Like obviously we don't want him to get injured, but if he goes down, who's going to take over? I mean, I guess if Jimmy G's there and you said he'd potentially retire.
Well, Stetson Bennett's the one I think they're really thinking will be the backup. If he already said Ty Simpson will compete with Stetson Bennett, who was the former Georgia quarterback.
And you know what? Like Stetson has sort of he's been an underdog like his whole career, right? Like what he did at Georgia, even in the NFL, like, they're drafting a guy in the first round. So I think he's also a guy like you can't count out because he's shown throughout his career, like in these situations, like no one expects things and look what he did at Georgia. I mean, truly amazing.
Here's what I wonder too, because there's been rumors for a while about Sean McVay getting burned out and possibly like taking some time away from ball and maybe even retiring. Like that's been out there, right? Like going to TV or whatever. Does Sean feel year to year? Does Sean feel year to year? Like obviously we know Matt Stafford's year to year because he's 38 years old. Like every year could be his last, right? Does Sean feel the same way? And so therefore is Sean like, I don't care about 3-4 years from now. I don't even know if I'm gonna be coaching anymore. Very possible.
Are you making
right?
Ev, like you sound like you want to make a prediction right here. What's your prediction?
No, I really don't. I really wonder with Sean how long term his thinking is. Les Snead's thinking I want to be the GM here for 20 years, right? Is Sean really thinking I want to be a head coach? Like he's almost retired before. Maybe not, right? Maybe that's why he's sitting there like, I couldn't care less about who's replacing Matt Stafford right now. All I care about is winning a Super Bowl this year. Understandable.
Yeah, and
right?
I mean, contextually, as I think about it, and it's not for everyone, but you got to think about it. He's already felt that way. He's expressed that publicly. He's married. He's now a dad. Mm-hmm. So life has changed, and we know as being fathers, like our kids are very, very important to us. Like being in their lives, being around. The coaching world's like very difficult in many aspects, not only from a coaching front, but from what the sacrifices your family go through, where you don't get to see your kids that much, right? Like they get to see their kids if they come in during the week for maybe a lunch with dad, play in the indoor facility. Friday's a shorter day. Sunday after the game, like it's not that much time. So you have to think like, I'm sure all that's weighing into it. And then Matthew Stafford's his quarterback. When Matthew's done, is it like, hey man, like I'm going to go do TV. TV is still a lot of work. You're on TV, you're preparing, you're doing those things. But I'd have to imagine, this more than I do. You did some broadcasting and you've done some in-studio work. You have a better work-life balance and you can still make a living and you can still be a part of ball. So I feel like all that's on the table, but the fact that Matthew's coming back and all that, he's like, nah, not yet.
And look, yeah, I'm just not convinced that even Sean is really a long-term thinker in this regard because especially if they win a Super Bowl with Matt, another one, I should say, with Matt. It's very possible. All right, before we get to the Eagles pick, one thing to note, this was a big night for offensive linemen, really big. There were 9 taken in the first round, 7 tackles and 2 guards. Now, granted, some of these guys might switch positions in the NFL, but 7 tackles, 2 guards went in the first round last night. That is tied for the record of the most offensive linemen drafted in the 21st century. So basically, since the year 2000, it's tied for the most drafted in the first round with 9. Teams that needed an offensive lineman and didn't go there, i.e. the Eagles, for depth, there's going to be hindsight. There's going to be revisionist history on this, looking back and thinking that this should have happened or this should have happened. Time will tell if they should have. But I bring that up because there were good offensive linemen in the first round. And the Eagles at number 20, they jumped up to 20 in front of the Steelers. The Eagles grabbed a young man by the name of Mai Lemon. And before we start this conversation, we're going to go back to a season episode from November 24th of 2025, where Nick and I were talking about some needs that the Eagles had, and specifically like owning the middle of the field as slot receivers, finding a guy that really has that style of play to own the middle of the field and be a good weapon for Jalen Hurts on the inside of the field. And there was a certain guy back on November 24th that we suggested. Take a look at this. Your point about the slot receiver, I think it's a really important one because there's also a body type and certain route types that these guys are good at, right? And some people might say, well, what do you mean? We've got A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. You're right, you do, but there's a certain willingness and body type and skill set that goes with being a really good slot receiver. That is where I think this offense lacks personnel. And I think that's something Howie needs to address moving forward. Something I think Eagles fans can keep an eye on. If you watch college football, out here on the West Coast, USC has a kid named Mai Lemon. He's an Orange County kid, grew up in Orange County, number 6 on USC. So when Amon-Ra St. Brown came out of USC, I thought he was crazy undervalued. He was like a 3rd or 4th round pick, and I was looking around like, I've watched this kid play for 3-4 years. How is he not going to be a 1st or 2nd round pick? And you look at him now, he's one of the most productive receivers in football over a long period of time. And I think Mai Lemon has the chance to be that guy. And so Eagles fans, like, if this kid, Mai Lemon, just an example, ends up in a good offense with a good quarterback, he's 100 catch a year kind of guy out of the slot. And he can also move outside if you need him to. But I think in the NFL, he'll be mostly utilized in the middle of the field. So there you have it. I'm not saying, Nick, I think it's possible, but I'm not saying, do folks in the Eagles organization watch the season? Or is this just like, we're going to let them go?
Oh, there's definitely some people in the Eagles organization that watch this show or get sound bites from the show. There's no doubt about it. It might not be Howie, but there's definitely people. I mean, what an amazing prediction. It's one of those things where, like, good for the Eagles, good for Howie to realize, like, and he's a great GM. We know that with the decisions he's made, but, like, he knows with the A.J. Brown saga, everything, all the predictions, June 1st coming along, potentially being traded to the New England Patriots. all those things. Like, they have to get another receiver in the room, slot receiver. Why do you want a slot receiver? We talked about throughout the course of the year. Obviously, you don't want to run hitch routes every single play, but we're not going to go down that road anymore. Sean Mannion's now the coordinator. But you want a slot receiver, third down. He's one of your best friends. Hey, you're hot. Slot receiver, hot route. You want a guy that can read coverages, that can, find the opening in the middle of the field, attack the middle of the field where they lacked last year. Someone that Jalen Hurts can trust and build around, a really amazing receiver that is physical, can do those things. And that's what they feel. That's what you felt like back in November with Mai Lemon. And now it came to fruition last night during the draft. The Philadelphia Eagles could have drafted anyone, right? There's a lot of players. The percentage chance of you being right back then with everything that happened the rest of the season and in the offseason with all the coaching changes and then going to get this player, that's got to be a 1% chance like you're going to be right in that situation. So kudos for you on the season for predicting that, Ev. And then I know the comments we posted that last night, a lot of the Eagles fans or fans in the NFL that follow the show were saying this is why we follow the show. These guys are trying to be diligent. They're talking deep about football. They're really thinking through all this. So what an amazing prediction. I do think what a great player, what a great pickup for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the Eagles fans should be really excited about Mai Lemon. I think this is going to help them a lot. It's going to help Sean Mannion as a play caller. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, so what's funny about Mai Lemon, as many of the fans saw, he had been on the phone with the Steelers, who were going to take him at 21. And it's funny because the Steelers need a guy like that. It would have been a great fit for the Steelers, right? Whoever plays quarterback, if it's Aaron Rodgers or if it ends up being who's their backup, Will Howard.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting. They couldn't even get a hold of him, and then they trade up and end up taking him before the Steelers can do it. I credit the Eagles scouting department, and I credit Howie Roseman for identifying kind of guy who's really undersized, and then from a measurable speed standpoint is not a burner. Right. So there's things about his just on paper where you look and you say, is this really going to carry over to the NFL? But then you watch him play and you see the kind of dog he is at really all. It's not just slot, also on the outside. I'm going to make a comp here, 2 comps for him. The first would be the obvious one because he's an SC guy, is Amon-Ra St. Brown. So Amon-Ra has become one of the most productive receivers in football. And I mentioned on the video we just showed, there's some similarities there with the way these guys play. The other one, hear me out on this one. And part of it's because they're the exact same size. I went and looked up Steve Smith, of the Hall of Famer of the Carolina Panthers, right? 5'9", 195. All right, Mai Lemon, 5'9", 195. Now, I think Steve is a little more of a strider on the outside, maybe a little more of a burner when it comes to running away from people. And Steve really is like a true number one on the outside, which Mai may develop into that, but I think they're going to use him a little more over the middle of the field. I hate to label him as a slot, but he's going to really own the middle of the field. I think there's some similarities in their game. The way at 5'9", they can go up and win contested catches, how good they are after the catch, their willingness to block, toughness over the middle of the field. All those things are really difficult to find in guys that are this size. And what this results in, when you have a guy that's willing to do these kind of things, there's a lot of run game replacement stuff that goes on. If you end up in 3rd and 3 right now, a lot of the 50-50 balls on the perimeter that the Eagles utilize, whether it's hitch routes or go balls or whatever it is, they're low percentage throws, no matter how good your quarterback is. They're not throws where you're like, hey, this is like a 90% chance of a completion. And those gimme throws are the ones that I thought the Eagles really missed on last year. Like shouldn't say they missed on, they didn't take advantage of very much last year. And I think it hurt Jalen. Part of that is Kevin Patullo. But I think a big part of it is I don't think they had the right personnel. And I think Mai gives them like that guy to be there and fill that void. And he's going to become Jalen Hurts' best friend right off the bat. He's a volume receiver. He's a 100-catch-a-year kind of guy, right? Whether you want him taking off down the seam and making a big play down the field, or whether you want to throw him a jerk route where it's like 3 yards and he ends up getting 10 yards with his run after the catch. So what I've really liked about what they've done here with the receiving core is this. This receiving core is now built to win. There's a good variety of skill sets with Devontae Smith, Mai Lemon now, Dontavian Wicks, who they traded for, Hollywood Brown, who they traded for, Elijah Moore, who they traded for. And there's other guys on there as well. Good diversity of skill sets there. Now they can even go or the assumption now is they'll move on A.J. Brown. It makes it a little more obvious he's probably not in their plans. They can go get good value for him, especially after adding the 3 veterans this offseason. And then for someone like Sean Mannion to do some really cool things offensively. It gives him another piece in a future star in Mai Lemon to work with. Hear me out on this, though. with regard to the plans of A.J. Brown and what this can mean for A.J. Brown. This is super interesting, and this theory's kind of been floating around out there. So they can't trade A.J. Brown officially until after June 1. Why? Because it cuts their cap hit in half if it's after June 1. So for economic reasons, it makes way more sense to wait and do it after June 1. I wonder if going into this draft, there's an agreement in principle basically already in place with the Patriots. I wonder that, like everybody wonders that. That's not unique. And I wonder if Howie told the Patriots, here's who you're going to draft, and we're going to trade you for him on June 1. Because the Patriots went and drafted Caleb Lomu. And look, I get that the Patriots are all in on Drake May and building the protection around him. But what's interesting about that is the Patriots took Will Campbell last year in the top 10, who's a left tackle. He struggled this year, but he's a left tackle. And when asked about whether Will Campbell will move to guard, Mike Vrabel, everyone in this organization has said, no, he's a left tackle. Now, they might be BSing. Like, eventually they move Will inside. It's possible he becomes a guard because he has short arms and all that. Caleb Lomu is exclusively a left tackle. That's where all of his experience is. He's not a swing guy. He's like been a left tackle his whole college career. What do the Eagles need? What do they need to address today in the second and third round of the draft? They need to address depth in the trenches, both at edge rusher, because there's really only two of them, in Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt. And also, they've got an aging offensive line. Lane Johnson obviously missed some time. Landon Dickerson missed some time. Tyler Steen's going to be, his rookie deal's up in 2027. Is it possible that they've got a deal in place already with the Patriots where they say, you draft Caleb Lomu, and then on June 1, we're going to trade you for Caleb Lomu, A.J. Brown, and possibly even more compensation? I think it's possible.
Or could it be Will Campbell?
I wouldn't put it by Howie to pull something like that off, but I wonder if they're already dictating terms for a June 1 trade and telling the Patriots what to do, and they're going to make that swap. It's very possible, but I'm not sure.
No, I feel like that's really fair. I mean, that sounds like something Howie would do, and especially with a player like A.J. Brown, you're not just going to be getting a 6th-round pick for him. Like, you're going to get something substantial because he's worth that. He's one of the top receivers in the NFL. We've always felt like A.J. Brown's a great player, right? Yeah. It's just things weren't working out with the Eagles this last year. There's a lot of frustrations, a lot of growing frustrations, and that's something they don't want to keep going on in the locker room, right, for them or for AJ. So all that makes sense. I think that's really fair. Is it going to be who the Patriots drafted, or is it going to be Will Campbell, who struggled last year and they trade him and then take the new tackle?
Good point.
Because they have tackles in Philly. They need other players. Right. So maybe you move Will Campbell to guard.
Will can go inside, possibly. I mean, if they were going to trade Caleb Lomu to the Eagles, I do think it's more likely than not that they won't do that and they'll find some other way to compensate the Eagles. But I think it's possible. But if they're doing Caleb Lomu, it's effectively you're giving them like what pick was that? I think it was like late 20s. You're giving them the late 20s first round pick. And some people have already said that like the Patriots and other teams have already said they won't give up a first round pick for AJ Brown, right? Because you're taking on his contract and you're helping the Eagles get rid of him, and like maybe they're giving him a 2nd round pick. I don't know. Just remember that's effectively what they would be doing. And there's been rumors or reports that is not what teams are willing to give up. I don't know. But I do know that A.J. Brown fits perfectly with what the Patriots are trying to do. And they drafted a left tackle last year. What's their plans with Caleb Lomu? Maybe it's to send him to Philly. Hard to say. But that's a side note. But to focus more on Mai Lemon and what he means to this team, he's the first wide receiver drafted in the first three rounds by the Eagles since Devontae Smith in 2021. And it's the first time the Eagles have traded up in the last 6 drafts in the first round. Okay? So previously when they did that, so it's been 6 drafts since they traded up in the first round, it resulted in them getting Devontae Smith, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Jahad Campbell. Okay? So what I would say is like Howie probably needs to, I don't think Jahad should be included in that mix, right? Because he was a couple years ago, so that wouldn't be in the last 6. But it means that Howie should trust his instincts because in the past it's worked, right? When he's got kind of first round thoughts, whether they trade or don't trade, because some of those guys were involved just by not trading, sticking with those guys. It means he should trust his instincts and go with what he feels. All right. And obviously with Mai Lemon, this is what he felt was the right one. He moved up in front. He traded with Dallas, gave up a couple 4th round picks, and moved up in front of the Steelers to make the pick. So I think if you're an Eagles fan, you trust the instincts, and we gave you reasons why you should like Mai Lemon.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, now the wide receiver room's complete. The next thing is, obviously finishing the draft, there's going to be some new players on all 32 teams, but Philadelphia, I mean, that's we talked about it just like in the situation. I mean, draft is very special, and the Eagles have also done a great job with undrafted free agents, right? We talked about our draft stories. You were undrafted free agent. I was drafted in the 3rd round. There's a lot of fun, a lot of excitement for a lot of young men coming up. The Eagles should be very excited about Mai Lemon with what he brings to the fold. He's going to help their offense this year with a young coordinator in Sean Mannion. They should be really excited, and it should be fun to watch.
I want to talk about his game a little bit as we keep going. Then we'll sign off here. But I want to give you a chance to look at some of his highlights. I mean, this guy's a total stud. If this video loads correctly, we're having some hiccups on the loading with some of these videos.
Yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it all.
Yeah, I mean, if you're listening on audio, we're playing a kind of highlight video here of Mai Lemon and all the things he does really well. We got to look at him here in the slot here. He's got plenty of game speed, right? Like I know he ran a 4.5, like mid 4.5s 40, which for a receiver is not what you'd anticipate, but his ability to separate and play fast, right? Like there's time speed and then there's game speed, and game speed always shows up in waves compared to time speed. Like you got guys that can run 4.3s, but you're always like, God, he never seems like he's separating from guys though, right? And a lot of times it's the suddenness at the top of routes, in and out of breaks. Like that quick suddenness is ultimately what you're looking for. And they'll get plenty of that out of Mai Lemon. I think Jalen Hurts is going to have a ball. Look at this ball. And it's a 50-50 ball out of the slot. It was like that slot fade look. And the guy's 5'9". Again, this is where I think the Steve Smith part shows up, right? Here's the fade ball out of the slot. He separates, puts his foot in the ground, goes up and wins the 50-50 ball at 5'9".
Yeah, he does a great job right there with late hands, right? I mean, late hands, receivers are taught, hey, ball's in the air, you see it, don't put your hand, keep pumping your arms and wait to put your hands up at the last second, because defensive backs are taught to split the hands and like once they see the hands go up, they put their hand right in between them to try to make it more difficult to the catch. That's why great receivers always have late hands. You know that more than I do from playing receiver and playing tight end, but that's how you catch those 50-50 balls is you get body position, but then your hands go up late, they go up strong, and then all the way to the ground, like strong hands, strong grip, strong fingertips, bring it all the way down to the ground. I mean, that's what we saw in those clips. And once again, obviously base downs, first and second down, but like you want those guys on third down. You want the 4.5 speed, like you said, game day speed is so much more important. Like tracks, like 40-yard dash, I mean, that's hard. I mean, it's not everyone's a track star, but having that separation, having the ability to make those contested catches when it matters the most is what the Eagles need. So, you know, I'm excited for them. I think they should be excited about this. And now Mai Lemon is officially a Philadelphia Eagle. You heard it first in November of 2025, the prediction. So there you go.
Yeah, I think ultimately, Nick, I think he'll outperform the number 20 slot in the draft. I know he's a third receiver taken, but he's different than those other two guys. And I honestly think, like, for the Eagles, let's say Carnell Tate and Jordan Tyson, who went ahead of him as receivers, and Mai Lemon at the time were all available. I think Mai Lemon, given what the Eagles already have, I think that Mai Lemon fits what the Eagles are trying to do better than the other two. So like this is the best case scenario for the Eagles at receiver. If you told me they could take any receiver in this draft, this is the guy I thought they should take, as we talked about back in November. And I think this is going to be a win for them. He's going to be a lot of fun to watch this year, especially, look, he's not like a direct replacement for A.J. Brown if A.J. ends up leaving. Not a direct replacement because he's a little bit of a different player. But I think he will easily replace the production in a different way in what I think is going to be a different offense, which is going to be a lot of fun to watch. Naturally, given what the Eagles did with Mai Lemon, naturally there's going to be questions about whether they should have used the first round to build trench depth, offensive and defensive trench depth, instead of going after a playmaker at wide receiver. They need help on the offensive line, which we mentioned like maybe ends up coming in the form of a Patriots trade. They have not drafted an offensive lineman in the first 2 rounds since 2022. Okay, so it feels like it's time to do that. That could happen today, right? I think they ended up, they entered this draft with 6 picks in the top 137 spots. And now that is 4 remaining because they used one on Mai Lemon and they traded one. So they're going to have a chance today in the second and third round to make a move and do something. Key things to remember on the offensive line. Lane missed 7 games last year with Liz Frank, right? But he's coming back. Landon Dickerson missed 2, but played through a lot of pain. Tyler Steen's rookie deal set to expire in 2027. Okay, that's offensive side. Defensive side, Nolan Smith needs to become that guy, like a very legit pass rusher, right? And Jalix Hunt needs to take another step, especially with Jalen Phillips gone, and they need to add somebody. They didn't do it in free agency, and so the assumption is they'll do it in the draft. So those are 2 offensive, defensive line depth on the edge, but also on the offensive line, maybe a swing guy. That's something I think they should target today, and I think they will target today. Or maybe it comes in the form of a draft or excuse me, in form of a trade with the Patriots at some point by June 1st. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, Howie's got a couple things up his sleeve, so stay tuned for the next 2 days of the draft. The 2nd through the 7th round are going to be really interesting. And then what they do in undrafted free agent. I mean, they always do an amazing job and find some hidden gems. So there's still a lot of fun new players that are going to be a part of the Philadelphia Eagles. So I know Howie has some things up his sleeve, so it'll be entertaining to see what they end up with.
All right. Reminder to everybody who watches on YouTube to please hit subscribe. And then if you're on Spotify or Apple, please follow. And then check us out on Instagram too. We post a lot of fun reels from the show. Sometimes stuff that doesn't end up on the show ends up on Instagram as well. Various like clips or reels that we'll post. So check those out. And here's another big reminder. So Monday, today's Friday, Monday, April 27th, when the draft is totally over, we're going to have Joel Klatt in studio. If you watched the coverage of the NFL draft on NFL Network, Joel Klatt, who works for Fox, teams up with NFL Network and is at that desk with those guys on NFL Network and does a fantastic job in the early rounds of the draft providing coverage. We're going to have him in studio on the show on Monday to dive into first round and some other happenings of interest that have taken place and some key takeaways from the draft, which will be a really, really fun show. So we'll have that up for you Monday afternoon. Make sure and check it out. Kind of appointment television for you. And as always, thank you for listening. This has been episode 40 with some cool NFL draft first round reactions. Thanks for listening.